So here's my video submission for Foundation 3 of the NGSS science practices and their predecessors. So I feel like it's important for me personally to talk about my views as far as national science standards or Georgia science standards or whatever science standards you're talking about. I think that they're great as a model for how one should create and drive their curriculum. I do not believe that they are end-all be-all. I feel that each school, heck, even each year is different. We have a different set of children, have a different group of kids that are in there. And so how do we modulate these practices, which I would agree, especially the NGSS standards, are very good. However, not all things apply. Not all things work at all levels and all classes. So, I definitely do believe that the NGSS standards are not merely old wine in new bottles. I do believe that they really spent some time and valid thought process into creating them. So what I have here is a little bit of a focus on the comparative of the Georgia science standards and the national science standards. And I will say that at Marist, we much more rely on these NGSS standards compared to Georgia standards. We are not opponent to end of course tests or anything like that, so we have much more freedom. Once again, as someone who was taught in plenty of public schools, Georgia is definitely content focused, not so much process, skills, general science knowledge focus. Much more traditional, a bunch of different standards. Once again, I think both of these, as far as the volume of standards, is a little bit almost oppressive if you look at it originally. I took the science standards from the document and put them into a Word doc just the way I could see them a little bit more clearly. That Word doc, even on 8-point font, took up 2.5 pages. So I understand that there's a lot of things that they want to cover and they don't want to leave anything out. But especially as a new teacher looking at that, it can be almost oppressive and daunting of a task to try to get all these things covered. I will say and agree with this that Georgia standards definitely do shy away from doing in-depth discussions of something more controversial. They do not allow time-wise to have these in-depth conversations about, let's say, evolution and things of that nature. It's just, there's no time for it, which is very unfortunate, because if a student is passionate about something, either for or against it, whatever the case may be, I think it definitely helps them feel validated and worthy if they are able to get that information out in their brains and what they're skeptical about. And we can address those issues and move on. Now, at Marist and the curriculum that we have developed, we're much more aligned with the NGSS standards. We're more concerned with skills and contents. Can you graph? That's the one thing we've been really pushing hard for the last 2 years. What's going on? How can we graph? Can we do it better? How do we use a microscope? Basic lab practices. These kind of things, which as someone who teaches the lab for AP biology, we still see them, they're just not there yet. They're just not quite where they need to be. And that's unfortunate, so it's our job to get that done. I like the idea of phenomenon driven as opposed to just like, here it is, boring, boring, boring. Right, now take your test. The phenomenon driven curriculum, these things that would incite and interest the students, is very much something that I enjoy. And once again, encourages critical engagement with real world issues. This year and last year, we did a bioethics court case at the end of genetics, where we took 5 genetic topics, things like gene implementing, like taking gene splicing, essentially, transplant of like animal organs, which we've been doing for years, but the ethicalness of that, and a bunch of other different topics. And so they actually have a court case where they argue for or against, depending on which side of the fence they're on. And it's one of their favorite projects because it allows them to engage with this material in a different manner than just sit down, listen to me, tell you what's on the PowerPoint, And then in 3 to 4 weeks, we're going to take a test on it. So there are aspects that I do like about the NGSS. The Georgia one, is someone who's taught in Georgia for a long time, I'm not a huge fan of theirs. But once again, each state kind of, and each in that, and even each county in Georgia thinks that they have all the answers and trying to, get it all figured out. So, what are some of the aspects of the old standards that you feel like are left out? For me personally, I've found that reminding the students that science is messy is very important. It is not linear, even though we want it to be. So in previous grad school class, we used this model right here to talk about how it's not just, observation, hypothesis, testing, interpreting the data, conclusion, boom. It's observation, some kind of hypothesis. We do a little bit of testing. Crap. We got to go back. Got a new hypothesis, got a new something. Do some more testing. All right. Does this validate our testing? Well, let's see what other people think and things like that. Like it is like this graph that was given to us, or this graphic organizer that was given to us is great. I love it. It goes all over the place. And that really is what science is. It is not just a linear process. We think, science, all right, we're logical. We move in an organized pattern, which is true in a lot of cases. But in this case, not always, right? We have to interpret the data. Okay, that brings us to something. Did anybody else get this data? No? Okay, well, what did I do wrong? It's this constant back and forth, So I really like these two, which you do not see in the NGSS standards, or really any standards at all anymore. It's just boom, 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 boom. And it's like, yes and no, that works, but doesn't work. And looking at the 1993 version of the website that was given, I do like the fact that they give this overall view of what we kind of want, what we kind of need or would like from our students, as far as what are they going to get out of this when they leave. I'm old enough to remember when Jay Leno used to do the questions on the street, and it's shocking how many basic science questions these kids or those adults would get wrong. So yes, I know that they're all going to remember that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Like that, for whatever reason, is the one thing that everybody remembers. However, I want them to understand more about how science works than just a regurgitation or a collection of facts and numbers and figures. And that's all well and good. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. But if I can create people who can, students who can look at a science paper or look at science stuff in general and decipher out what they need and what is important, then I've done my job. For them to be able to read an article in Time Magazine or the New York Post or the New York Times and actually kind of understand what's going on. Like, it's hard sometimes to get lost in the deeper science, but if I can create critical thinkers that can look at it, extrapolate out what is beneficial and useful, then I've done my job as a science teacher. So, I would like to see something more of a summation of what they hope to get out of these, huge list of standards for Georgia and for the NGSS. So, and here are my references. A few of these are the ones that you gave us, but also some of the ones that I got on my own. Thank you very much. Have a great day.